What's going on, everybody? It's Josh, aka the Most of Muscle, and I am coming at you with a next up podcast solo Q&A edition. I'm going to try and make this a little bit brighter because it is dark. Yeah, I should really do this before the podcast starts, but like whatever, bro. Um, so if I seem a little off, a little tired, Delilah done shit on the bed twice last night. That's just morning. One at like 2 a.m., just a full blown clumper right in the middle of the sheet. So I had to take the sheet off in the middle of the night and throw it out. And then on my comforter at like 4:50 in the morning, I was like, all right, we're getting up at this point. So if I'm a little tired, a little off, that's the reason why. Caffeine has been consumed. We're feeling good though. We're currently cooking our low day, like 100 grams of carbs. But we're going to get into this because why the not? It was hot as all get out yesterday. Um, and boy, it was it was actually unbearable to kind of sit in this office. There's no AC, there's no vent in here. So even if the AC is on the gym, this office will get hot. So it's almost like a sauna. It works out. All right, let's get into this. So I have questions kind of throughout the week, and then I have some questions that I put up. So first question, does your pre-workout meal need to be your highest calorie meal? No, very much so, no. I almost think that this is actually a poor idea. I do think that this should be a higher carb meal. Depending on how long you work out for, you should have some fats in there. Um, 5 to 10 grams normally if you're working out for like an hour and a half. Um, but if anything longer than that, like you're wasting your time in the gym first and foremost. But also, realistically, you let's just be real. You don't need that, especially if you're using an intra workout. So I would suggest most people probably don't need as much food pre-workout simply because I don't know about you. You might be different. I do not want to be full during a training session. I don't want my stomach feeling at least full, bloated. I want to feel almost empty, not hungry, but almost empty when I go into my training session. Because when you're pressing hard, let's say that you're doing a leg press and you have a full stomach and everything's just kind of slodged up in there, uh, it doesn't feel good. Even on refeed days, I'll actually take longer to get into my training session after I eat my pre-workout meal if it's a larger meal, just because I know my stomach's not used to having that amount of food in it. So it's going to take a little bit longer to digest. So I never suggest that anybody has that as their, pre-workout meal. There's the tiredness, right? Their pre-workout meal being their largest meal. I just don't think I think that's a recipe for disaster. And with most of my clients, I believe that it's a recipe for disaster. Now, definitely do believe that that should be a higher carb meal. That should be a meal that you're adding more carbs to, but you don't need to make it your highest. You could also probably get away with having a little bit less protein in that meal. Off of that question, does what you eat pre-workout matter? I used to believe no. I used to say like, hey, whatever you're going to eat pre-workout, like just eat it. It's fine. Like go fuel your training. After hearing from Joe, along with wearing the CGM myself, personally, I have no problem with my blood sugar when I have like cream of rice and whey protein pre-workout. But someone like Joe processes the cream of rice and whey protein really fast to where he's going hypo during a session. So it does matter. And it depends on your individual response. Now, again, you could slow that down with a little bit of fat. But if you're just someone who rips through a certain type of food, you get hot afterwards, your blood sugar just drops kind of through the floor after a minute or, after like 20, 30 minutes, then you're definitely somebody who should avoid eating I'm going to say more processed, but really it's like easier digesting meal, like a cream of rice and whey protein, and probably go for something that's more of a whole food. Something like rice, chicken, maybe a little avocado, maybe some fruit. Normally, I like fruit in a pre-workout meal, especially if it's banana, simply for the potassium benefits. Also, the ability to kind of have some fructose in there to, re-synthesize liver glycogen is never a bad idea either. So I normally would suggest for people to turn around and like realistically kind of look at your blood glucose, see where it sits, see how you feel during your training, and base that decision off of that. Remember, when we're going into training, what makes us feel good is going to be the most important thing. So if you're someone who can turn around, you feel really good off of chicken and rice, eat a chicken and rice pre-workout. Now you're also going to turn around and if you make it the same meal every time, you build a consistency. So I've even had times where, I might have two or three options between pre-workout meals. And I'm like, hey, this session went really well, and this is what I ate pre-workout. I'm going to run with that. I'm going to stick with that because what winds up happening is now I'm creating some sort of a mental like connection to, all right, this was a good session. This meal worked well for me. Let's keep it rolling. So always an option, always something that, pay attention to your body, pay attention to how you feel because it's going to be massively beneficial. What's your opinion on intra workouts? This has changed over the years. Let me tell you, uh, back when I was a little bit younger, a couple years ago, I didn't think intra workouts really mattered. Um, I never understood somebody who was like, we're going to have, 15 grams of carbs intra workout because, I'd rather have the 15 grams in food at that point because if I got to go that low, like, give me the 15 grams of food, 15 grams of carbs from food. Now, I've definitely noticed that my power output is better. My pumps are better. I feel better when I have something, even if it's like 10 grams of carbs intra workout. It is something that has made a massive difference in the actual feeling of my training. Right now, when I run my pre workout, it's a non stim pre workout, and then I add 20 grams of glycerol to it, like glycerol liquid. Pretty much it's one cup of pump and flow. That 20 grams, if I turn around and I have that a little bit closer to the workout window, let's say 15 minutes before I start training, I will feel a better connection to the training the entire session. And also my upper body days are a lot faster than my lower body days where I don't have carbs in my upper body days. So I will feel better during that training as opposed to if I had that pre-workout at, let's say, an hour before or 30 minutes before. So that is something that I found to be just massively beneficial is to have your intra workout, have some sort of intra workout carbs. Also, in your intra workouts, salt, need salt. It's going to help with your muscle contractions. It's also going to help with pump. It's going to help with some blood flow. Like you are going to get way more out of just salting some water than if you just drink water during your training session. So add a little bit of salt, add some flavor if you need to. Um, Intra workouts, I think, are great. If you are someone who is willing to sacrifice, 15 grams of carbs throughout, like maybe your pre and post workout window, do it, man. It can make a huge difference. Now you just need to turn around and you need to make the decision on what exactly you're going to do for your body because your body is different than my body. And if you need more like 25 grams, that's starting to pull a pretty decent chunk of food off of it. And if you're in a diet context, that's going to be a lot more than it feels like. So it's just an idea. All right. Got a question here. What's your goal after the universe? That is really, really difficult to answer. I'm going to give the base answer of I really want to build this gym. I want to build my business to a point where I no longer have to worry about like actively coming here and get to come here because I love to come here, not because I feel like I need to work a certain amount of hours to make sure that like the place is running correctly and rent and so on and so forth. Because hey, we're still a new business. Most new businesses do not become profitable for a very long time. I would like to become profitable quickly. That way, the place can run itself. I can continue to improve it, and I can do the little things of it. Now, on a competitive aspect, that really depends on how I place. If I win a pro card, then that answer is going to be very different. Simply because I am not at a pro level yet, in terms of like standing on a pro stage and being competitive. Do I think I have a pro level physique? Like in that aspect? No. No, I think I have a lot of growing to do. I think I'm going to come in about 10 pounds below my cap, which means that I'd be 20 pounds below a pro cap. It's a lot of work, bro. So if that's the case, then I would plan on going into an off season, enjoying my off season, growing my business and growing. If I do not win a pro card, well, it really depends on what exactly the judges say. If they say I'm too small, hey, listen, it makes no sense to go for a pro card, bro. You need to put on size. Because now you're just playing the game of who's going to show up, and that means that you're still not a pro. Versus if they tell me, hey, you just weren't in condition, that's not going to happen. But like, all right, well, you could diet for 2 to 3 more weeks, go do North Americans or go do sorry, USA. That's an option. So you always have to just kind of see what the feedback is and where you're exactly at. My game plan right now is because I'm going to speak this into existence now, is that I am going to win this pro card. And then I'm going to focus on growing my business. So it's the first time I've said that this prep. Um, and I think it's time to start saying that because I'm not working for nothing. I'm not working to turn around and come in third, fourth, fifth, sixth place. I'm coming to win the show. And I think everyone should feel that way. I think going into anything, you should feel that way. So that's it. All right, Neil, you're looking forward to eating post show. You know, I never really think about this to that degree, to like, oh, I can't wait to have XYZ. I have a plan with my boy Malik that we're gonna go to Elm Street Diner the next day. That sounds good and all, but like I've looked at their Instagram and stuff, and I don't even have anything that I'm like super interested in eating. Um, Normally I've had 2 years in a row where after a show, my first meal was cream of rice, whey protein, and fruit. And that's probably going to be the move because it's just a meal I thoroughly enjoy. Actually, last year I had rice, beef, banana, and peanut butter, and that was also thoroughly enjoyable. So it might be that. I don't plan on going out for food. I plan on just hanging out with my mom, hanging out with Joe, hanging out with the people I really love and care about and just enjoying their company after we do what we come to do. So that's kind of my plan when it comes to like a post show meal, but also like a fuck ton of frozen fruit. What's the biggest lever you pulled that noticeably changed your rate of growth? All right, two things: abandoning the safer use model. Um, I do think there's a merit to the safer use model, but I do not think there's merit to the safer use model if you have to put on a lot of tissue. The merit to a safer use model is after you have already accumulated that tissue, and now there is not really a lot of room to grow from there. You just need to refine. Whereas if you need to put on a lot of tissue, running higher tests is definitely the best idea. And two, when it comes to my training, um, the biggest difference, I always trained hard. I always trained, quote unquote, accurately with good form. You can go through my Instagram and like find old videos and like pausing in the bottom and perfect tension, blah blah blah. But none of the reps were like intentional. I did not feel the muscle that was working actually working. Now when I get to reps, if I'm doing a set of 15, rep 6, 7, 8, I'm feeling whatever muscle I'm training hard. Like it hurts. And now I'm just pushing through that until I can no longer move. So I need to turn around and say that it would be to have true intentionality behind the actual movement patterns that I'm doing. I'm not just going through the motions. I'm not just trying to have perfect slow form. I'm trying to emphasize every inch, every ounce of energy that I have that I'm putting into that step to truly grow muscle tissue. Something I've realized now that like I didn't really realize when I was younger. This is bodybuilding. It's not powerlifting. Yeah, being strong is really cool, but being strong and actually accurate is even better. And I'd rather look strong than be strong. If I can get away with doing 2 plates on the hack squat as opposed to 4, my joints are going to be a lot happier. And if I can grow muscle off that, hey, listen, what's going to happen when I'm super accurate, slow, controlled, intentional with 4 plates where I just was with 2? That's going to be a much bigger leg. So, all right, I like this one. How do you keep your head in the game on the hard days? I think a lot of people overthink this stuff to a degree where it's like, oh, today's so hard. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. Just take it all minute by minute. I think if you're sitting there and you're saying, like, hey, I am, I have to eat this meal. After I eat this meal, I got to go for a 10-minute walk. I think walking on a treadmill, first and foremost, if you're counting minutes, is a terrible idea. Get outside, go for a walk, go get some fresh air, feel better about yourself. Today it's raining. So my, post-meal walks are going to be on a treadmill. Okay, not a huge deal, but I'm going to cover up the time. I'm going to, either watch something on YouTube or try and read something. I'm going to try and occupy my mind with something that's not exactly me just, sitting there ruminating on like, oh, when's the next time to eat? Right now, I'm doing a podcast in between meals. Why? Simply because I have the time right now and I don't want to be ruminating on the next meal is going to be XYZ. It's a low day, low calorie. The longer you sit and just like, oh, I can't wait for the next one, it's not going to work for you. It never does. It always ends poorly. So on the hard days, on the days that suck, you make the most out of each minute. And you just try and push yourself to go further and find more tasks to do, find little ways to get ahead for the rest of the week. Like that's in my opinion, the biggest thing you could do. Thoughts at this point in your prep, favorite movements currently for each body part. So I'm going to break that into two questions. Thoughts at this point in your prep. This has been the most enjoyable prep I've ever been in. I'm not sitting here looking, to get away and go train in another gym. I'm not looking for, what little food hacks I could do. This prep has been thoroughly enjoyable, and genuinely, that's down to the environment and the competence. Joe is so competent in coaching. I fully trust him. I fully believe in what we're doing because I'm seeing the results. When you have somebody who I'm not even like sugarcoat it, when I was working with Dino and we do these random ass high days and I'd be up 8 pounds the next day, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel good, bro. I'm swollen as fuck. It's like the next day I'm sitting there and I go to train and I'm like, yo, I don't even have a good pump because I don't know if this food is processed yet. Now, also, how long is it going to take to get back into a deficit here? That's not great. Yesterday, I had a higher carb day. I gained 2.5 pounds. Okay. Like, guess what? A lot of that is just going to be gut weight. I also didn't go to the bathroom before. I weighed myself. I can tell you, it was definitely some gut weight. And now today's a low day. I trained hard as hell yesterday. Every time that we've done a refeed, I progress my movements the next day, which is the most important thing is like keeping training performance high. The weight is coming off. I'm losing the body fat, but I'm enjoying the hell out of this process. This is the most enjoyable prep I've ever had. And realistically, I can't even say it's hard because I enjoy the process of prep. I enjoy the process of dieting. And I like when the training gets hard to keep performance because that's when you find out if you're really about this or not. Training is the best part of this whole thing. And if you can't keep your training performance high mentally, you don't want to do it, you aren't built for this. So when it gets hard, how hard are you willing to go? Oh, listen, you got a hack squat set with 3 plates and a quarter today. Last week, you got 14 reps. That means this week, in order to progress it, you got to get 15. Are you really sitting there on rep seven? You know, there's only like I gotta at least match seven. Or are you like, hell yeah, bro, I'm gonna beat what I did last week? Because when you're in that mindset, you will not lose. You will not lose because you are going to get so much out of the prep. So that's where I'm at. I already beat my best. I'm going to continue to beat my best, and I only have 6 weeks left. So now, second part, favorite movements currently for each body part. I like to start like in one spot. Calves, seated calf raise. Why? Because I use it as a way to warm up my knees. Just makes my knees feel really good afterwards. So that's for seated or yeah, seated calf raise for calves. For hamstrings, seated leg curl. old, true, trusted, reliable. It fucking works. Sorry, fucking works. My hamstrings are full blown afterwards every single time. Quads. It was the Jim Leco leg press with the torque wedge until the torque wedge almost tore my Achilles. So now it's back to the hack spot reverse banded. Feels just absolutely nuts. Glutes is either Smith hip thrust or Nautilus hip thrust. Both of them feel pretty much the same to me. So I really like the Nautilus one just because it's easier to load the plates and I don't have to walk around quite as much. And like, there's a little bit of a when you get racket, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. Um, don't train abs. So I'll say vacuums for abs. Lower back, I don't really train lower back either. I guess if you consider any time that I do like a cable row, that would be my lower back training. Um, but we're gonna say upper back here. It would be the strive row and a neutral. No, sorry, it's a T-bar row. I just love it. I love a heavy T-bar row. I think it's fantastic, especially ours with the seat. It's good money. For lats, single arm pull down, especially if it's on the Nautilus. My lats are just fried afterwards every single time. Um, Rear delts, I do this bench line cable fly where the cables start over my head and then I get to come down on like I would say 45-degree angle, but it's more like a 60-degree angle where like my arm is like here. Those annihilate my rear delts. Laterals, really, I love flying cuff lateral raise. I don't love that I set them up on the fucking floor. That was a poor idea for prep. And I knew that going into it that I was like, I'm gonna regret this decision. But guess what? Just six of those left if I do those all the way through prep. And I could use an incline bench. I just don't want to. I like the floor. Chest. It's funny because I'm not even doing it, but the Nautilus, or not Nautilus, the Strive flat chest press machine, I have found an affinity towards now. I'm currently still utilizing the plate loaded Nautilus press because the plate loaded Nautilus press is a standard movement for me. It's something I do every off season. I just need to maintain performance on it. But the stride does feel better to me. So there is a chance that within like the next 2 weeks or so, as we're starting to taper down volume and not trying to, kill myself in the gym, I do switch to that machine because it does just feel fantastic. What are we up to? I don't really train front delts, so we'll say an incline press there. Bicep, any sort of cable curl just feels really good. Normally higher rep there, normally shorter rest periods. And triceps is going to be the crossbody or the overhead katana extension, where I have my elbows on the uh, arms for an overhead variation and for a arms down variation, anything with the daisy chain. If I am doing it on an incline bench, and the cables are coming in front of me, that feels really good. Or doing it off of the lat pull down, that also feels really good. You always have to like kind of keep in mind when it comes to me and tricep training. My elbows get really fucky really quick, so I don't want to ruin my elbows while I'm training, especially not in prep, because that's just the number one way to make sure that I am fucked for the rest of this prep. So, what is one thing you change your mind on this year, and one thing you double down on? One thing I changed my mind on is that I would not try. You know what? I'll say one thing I changed my mind on was thinking that you needed to be as strong as humanly possible on like a leg press. Um, I no longer believe in that. I think that you need to actually just be intentional with the movement. I know I talked about this already, so I'm going to try and think of something else while I answer the other side of the question. One thing that I've doubled down on Your environment matters. Um, I don't want to say I was depressed when I owned Ultimate, but there was definitely a cloud over my head at all times because it was always a problem. Somebody always had something that they did not like. I'd walk in and just be like, what now? And that sucked because it made me not want to improve the place. Now at Pivot, like if there's a problem, I try to solve it as fast as humanly possible. I love this place. I'm here most of my time. I work 7 days a week here. And the environment is huge. Also, I'll say this, if someone is draining your energy, they need to go. If it is a one-sided relationship, if it is a one-sided friendship, if it's a one-sided like coach to client relationship. They gotta go. They cannot be in your space because all it's going to do is it's just going to ruin your mental space. You're going to be in a spot where you do not want to be there. So that is my, one thing I am going to say is like the thing I'll double down on. We'll throw a drug thing in there. One thing I changed my mind on is that weed is a performance enhancer. I am matching my performance without smoking. So I am going to say that. All right. ECA stack and a cut, effective worth the stim. I, you know, I found that for a lot of people, the ECA stack is something that's kind of fallen off. Um, and it's really just from the aspect of like most bodybuilders now are taking baby aspirin year round. So an ECA stack, for those who don't know, is ephedrine, caffeine, and a aspirin. Ephedrine and caffeine fucking work, right? Like they work well. So I would say, it is worth it. Um, I've been seeing a lot of benefits to this prep. Cardio is easier. Keeping my heart rate high is easier. And I'm burning fat pretty effectively. So I think that that's a huge one for me. Um, so yeah, I would say it's effective 100%, and I would say it's worth the stim. I think that you just need to be careful with how stimulated you're getting. If you're trying to have 400, 500, 600 milligrams of caffeine, with the ECA stack, probably not the best idea. But if you're sitting there and you have like, 150, 200 milligrams of caffeine pre-cardio, and then doing your ephedrine and you're having your aspirin, go ahead. I do use the aspirin with that stack just because I'm taking the aspirin anyway. So I think that's the biggest thing. All right. I get asked this question all the time. What's different about this prep compared to your last? Confidence. My coach is confident this time around. Last time around, we were just throwing shit at the wall and hoping for the best. We're kind of relying on shape and genetics more than anything, whereas this time things are calculated. It makes sense. Um, Biggest changes you made to your training in the last year? Kind of talked about this intentionality, but I'll also say that I moved into higher rep ranges. I used to be very comfortable in like the 6 to 10 rep range. Now I pretty much do everything in the 12 to 20. Whole idea behind it is just more blood flow, more tension. I'm intentionally moving the muscle from point A to point B with from rep 1 to rep 20, that set is going to be more effective, in my opinion, than a 6 to 8 or a 6 to 10, because the first 3 reps are just so heavy that you don't feel the muscle. Then you only feel the muscle because the load is so high that you're feeling like something is going to fucking tear. So I would say that is the biggest change I've made for my training. Uh, and then our last question. Do you think the gains from test and mass are really just coming from the test? Yes. Yes, 100%. Um, I know I've said it on Joe's podcast. I've probably said it on here too. You can get really fucking big from test, GH, and insulin. So I think the Masteron is just realistically for the estrogen modulation. Does it build muscle? Yeah, all steroids build muscle. They all turn around and contribute to muscle protein synthesis. But I do believe that like most of that is really just from the test. Then you get the estrogen modulation uh from the Masteron. And realistically, at this point, if you're getting Masteron, it's probably just test P. So keep that in mind. But from what I've seen in the past, what I've seen in this most recent, off season, um, Mastodon's a great compound, but it's not the one that is put on the tons of tissue that I want it to, whereas Test has. So I think that Test is best. It's the most bioidentical compound that you can use. Use that, use GH, use insulin, turn around and grow as big as you're trying to get to just from those three. Make sure that you modulate your estrogen either through an AI or EQ, PREWO, Mastodon, but just like not allowing your E2 to get too high, but to where you're comfortable, and then eating a ton of food and sleeping your ass off. Like if you are properly recovering, you will grow more tissue. That's just point blank, period. So with that said, I'm signing out. If you have made it this far, drop a comment, 5 minute crew. Um, for those of you who are potentially looking for coaching, I am taking on new competitors at a pretty steep discount because I want to help you help yourself in having a really, truly great first show experience. I think that that is something that is missing in this coaching industry is that everyone wants to go into, these high level coaches, and a lot of them have lost touch with how to actually prep somebody for their first show. So I would like to help you. Just shoot me a DM. Um, codes. Code Moses at checkout for neck, body, HD muscle, lift fucking head, and chunk on island. So if you got any questions, shoot them down below. Shoot me a DM. Signing out. Peace.